I'm not sure how much you know. So I'm just a guy that said, "Hey, let's do this" 3 days ago, and I just invited every single person that I knew to come. Showed up on Monday. People showed up on Tuesday. People showed up today, and today was the last day I was going to do this. But it could go on. But yesterday, there was a woman who was sharing some thoughts and some feelings, and we got into a conversation around the white liberal elites. People who are down for the cause, have clout, can reach out to people, but what they and the stereotype here, get together, have a cocktail party with a bunch of people that look like them and think like them, and after the party's over, they all go home, right? So and maybe donate some money to some cause or whatever, and then that's what they do, and then it's over. So hopefully. And what I had shared with the person who had said this is that then whatever that conversation you're having with the people who believe what you believe, you got to take that and keep going with it and go somewhere else with it outside of that comfort zone where a bunch of people get together and say, hey, yeah, we're doing our part. All of us who look alike, think alike, agreeing with each other, and then just stop and then not go anywhere further. So,
and I think, Ron, like that White Fragility book that I linked in the chat there personally has given me tools to be able to have a conversation that's not just a like cursory level conversation anymore. Like before, the conversations that I had with white friends about racism, it was very polite. It was very, it didn't do anything. It did nothing. Like through that book, I've been able to have better, deeper conversations and then follow up on them after, so that it's not just like oh, well, now we all feel good about that. We had that conversation. We're white people. We check the box. It's like, no, well, tell me more about did you read the other documentary that I told you about? What did you think about that one paragraph? And so like, I think by stepping further into the discomfort as white people, like that's the only way we're gonna. For me, I think that's going to be a big piece of this. To your point, so it's not just like let's have some cocktails and feel good like we had the conversation and then leave.
Yeah, I think Jenny, I'm saying then it has to leave the party.
Yeah, totally.
And not among the same people. So when you're at work, on Monday, and you hear somebody say something that you don't appreciate, then you have to be able to talk to that person.
100%.
You're at the gym and somebody said, or whatever. So it has to leave that party, right?
Yeah.
And you could everybody, you take the conversations a step further with people and you have a really deep conversation, but then whatever you look out of that situation has to leave in the rest of the world. I think, and all of us are probably guilty of that to some extent, right? Where we all have conversations within our groups. And that's it.
I think, like, this is obviously great. We've all thanked Ron so far for doing this.
I don't need any more thanking.
Okay. Well, but here is the thing.
Money.
Maybe money. Here's the thing, and as you know, Ron, I have a podcast, and I'm probably going to incorporate this concept into some future episodes. I never thought of it before, but you had this idea. We're all here. Obviously, I can't assign everybody to do this if I do it, but we all could do the exact same thing Ron did and take this conversation to a different set of people, because clearly it's I think for the most part, the white people, like all the white people that are in this call right now, that want to be a part of this and to different degrees don't know how to do it. The Black people, other minorities that experience the things that the white privileged people like me don't really experience, love to have everyone on the call, but more so the stretch of white people that get it and they're out there protesting, to the people that were furious over the murder, but everyone in between there need to start talking to each other for the movement to continue. There's people on the far side that might be unreachable. They've made up their mind and everything. They'll never change their mind about anything in their life. Maybe we give up on those people. I don't know. But there's people on the edge of there that would have this conversation, would never open the conversation, maybe like the people that James was with at church earlier tonight. There's people that don't know how to do this, but if they see it happening more and more, maybe they finally dip their toe in the water and say something, and see other people lacking the confidence in those moments and feel like, okay, they're vulnerable, I can be vulnerable. This is a place to be vulnerable among other people that are vulnerable, that don't like what's going on, but still, even after 2 weeks where a lot of white people like me have stood up and said, I can't be silent anymore, there are white people that have been silent that maybe don't want to be silent, but still don't know how to not be silent because they don't know what to say, but they feel like something's wrong.
That's an amazing point that you're making. One of the biggest things that we have as each of us as humans is our voice. And that's the only thing that we have that is so powerful. So by the medias that we are exposed to, by presenting ourselves with our voice for change is so important. So with you, with your podcast, others, with just conversations at the water cooler or a virtual coffee with a friend, it's so important just to continue the conversation. And it doesn't have to be a huge platform. It could just be, hey, what did you think about that Black Lives thing? And just have that conversation, because that's what's going to spark the change. So, my wife is over here looking at me, and so just one comment that I want to make, that I think this is how insensitive we as a human race have become. So we've been on lockdown in Colorado for nearly 90 days. And I just recently got a haircut, so I hope you guys all enjoy it. It's a great haircut. It's good. But my boss in Texas, so a white guy from Texas, full-on Christian, nice guy, but ignorant when it comes to social and racial inequality. So he was telling me probably 15 days ago or so that he went and got a haircut. And I was like, oh man, I wish I had a haircut, because my hair is growing out of control. It looks like a total afro. Yeah, Ron, I see you ain't got no hair. And I was like, man, my hair is out of control. I've got a complete afro growing. And what he said was, oh, don't worry about it, Vic. I'll send you a box of Jerry curls so we can relax that. And so that was funny to him. But it's just with racial insensitivities, hair from white people to a minority group, again, I'm Latino, Black, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. The point being is that it's very easy for white people to say something derogatory about someone's hair, and it's funny to them, completely insensitive. And of course, I laughed it off, right? He's my boss. What am I going to do? Be that dickhead that's like, oh, now I'm the weird guy that's argumentative. But moving forward, I'm not going to allow that to happen to me anymore. I am going to stand up for myself, because that's not fair.
We could get into I think our girls went to sleep, so we could get into the hair conversation, but we're not going to.
No, they're not sleeping.
Hey, Jess.
That would be like 3 more hours on here.
Hey, Jess, can we pull you in?
Of course.
All right, so Jess was a client of mine who was referred to me by a mutual friend, and I helped sell her house 3 or 4 years ago, I guess it was. And she actually happened to have gone to high school with my wife, which we didn't know, and Chrissy, who's on the call as well. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are as far as what the discussion has been.
I've enjoyed it. Excuse me. I've enjoyed it immensely. I wanted to bring up something. It's a very touchy subject. One of the officers that was involved in it, Tom, I went to school with him. Well, my younger sister went to school with him. And it's been heartbreaking to know one of them, and that somebody I know could be involved in something like that. And he was recently released. He was the rookie of the 4 cops, the one that was the 4th day on the job, the only one that stood up to try to get them to stop, I guess. I feel extremely torn on wanting him to pay for what was done, but also knowing he is a good person and he tried to stop it. What he did wasn't enough. But if any one of us were in that same position, 4th day on the job, and your superior stops you, how would you react? You know? And it's been a large family discussion on, does he deserve the same punishment or less or any? And I mean, it's across the board, but that is one of the big family discussions right now.
I'm just going to chime in real quick on that. He grew up down the street from me. So I didn't really know him because he was much younger than me. But that's also been a family discussion of mine on our family group text. I was late today because I just got off work. But when I left from work, my mom had text saying that he had just been bailed out of jail, I guess, today. So they were talking about concerns of if people are going to come to the neighborhood and how that's going to look. Because another friend of mine, I live in California, a friend of mine here texted me. She knows that he grew up in the same neighborhood. And she said, did you see that your neighbor got off? And I was like, I don't think he got off. I think he just bailed out. So, like, I don't know how the media is presenting it, because here people are saying, like, oh, they let him out as if he's not guilty. So then I'm kind of curious how the reaction is going to be. I mean, I don't know what they're reporting in Minnesota, but at least out here, they're not saying like that he bailed out. Not excusing anything he did, but it's just being a little bit misrepresented too. So I'm a little torn in that scenario too, because we do know people that know his family, but I think he should be held accountable, obviously, for his actions. I do commend him for trying to say something, but it's kind of as far as it goes for me.
That's the first time. I don't know if anybody else has heard that he was out.
Yeah, that they got bailed out today. A few of them, I didn't know all of them did.
No, just him in for $750,000 bond, I believe that was.
Yeah, just him. From what
Just
I understand.
him.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
just him.
I thought the main one was too today for same amount of bond.
His was 1.25 million. So I don't know if he, was able to, but
I'm gonna show you.
I've only heard one.
Out too.
Yeah. To address real quick, Elise, thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Chrissy, for being, open and honest, of obviously knowing family or friends of one of the 4 police officers. I think that, takes a lot of courage to obviously open up to that, because obviously there's difficult conversations on that side too. I think the one thing that's going to be very difficult in this situation is that, there's just, in the end of the day, there's just a human being and human beings on human beings. And I think that that's what makes it difficult for anybody, not just in the Black community, as you can see, not just in the Latino community, not just in the white community, but everybody is enraged by this. And I think that everyone felt, if they were in that point of authority, I don't know, because I'm not saying that everyone knew what it would be like to be a rookie cop. So I don't want to speak for that. But I just think as a human being, I think everybody felt that as a human being, you would just stand up at that point, because the risk to lose your job is, minuscule to the risk to letting George Floyd die the way he died. And I think that that's going to be what people hold in their minds and in their hearts. I'm not the judge. I'm not sitting here, giving the full prosecution and what Derek, deserves versus the other 3 cops. I just know all 4 cops we deserve justice for George Floyd and the countless amount of lives that have been lost or brutally beaten or discriminated against. But at the same time, that's just a very difficult thing because you put it for a human aspect. I think people feel that, what would you rather do? Just let it slide? Or would you rather take the risk of losing your job, knowing that you're doing the right thing? And I think that that's what, I think most of us hold. And I would love to hear from other people what you feel, but that's truly how I feel as a human being.
Yeah, Ray, I think, Ray, you're kind of going to lead me to a different point. Now, I don't know any of the people involved or, what their background, I just know what I read. But it shows that, if we just isolate it to Derek Chauvin, his event, what he did affects so many more people, right? So, the person that you guys know is then affected by his action, right? No matter what, because he's there, he's going to be tied to, so the rest of his life is going to be linked to what this guy did, right? No matter what his intentions are, no matter what he did or didn't do. So that's where, I guess, the failure of the police department, whether it's training, whether it's just institutional racism within the police department, whether Derek Chauvin's the biggest bigot to ever live, or all those things affect everybody else, right? So just by association, that's going to affect him. So that's why I think it's so important for everybody to care and get involved versus, okay, well, that happened in that situation. Let's just, whatever, that had nothing to do with me. But it just shows how racism can affect so many other people because of one person's act. And
that's a great point, Ron. But one thing to note is that they had their weight on him. So
no,
you know
I know
what I'm saying?
I understand that.
So that's a hard, difficult thing. But also, I wanted to mention that the fact, guys, think about this. This is how mind-blowing this is. The fact that Derek Chauvin, after 19 complaints, is the one who's training these two younger officers, that right there tells you how much systematic racism there is within departments. And that was how much they don't care and disregard. He had already shot and killed, people of color. So the truth of the matter is, the fact that he was the one doing the training is already, I love your point, Ron, is my point. That connects it right to the systematic side of the Minneapolis Police Department. Why is he training two younger officers with 19 complaints? That's in itself is so powerful. It says a lot about the department.
And that was going to be my point, is that then, I know they were kneeling on him. But there was these events that prior to that, which made people think it was okay, right? So if you fix the systematic racism prior to this actual event that happened 2 weeks ago, then that puts these guys in a little different situation. So yeah, I think we're on the same page there. But I didn't want to get lost that I was saying that he didn't have a decision to make and he wasn't a part of it. But the system put him in a situation, whether he was intimidated by a superior or he thought nothing was going to happen, I don't know. But if there wasn't restructuring prior to the situation and the problem was fixed prior to the situation, he wouldn't have been in that situation. So that's where it affects so many more people.
I think that's
he's going to be a victim of it.
Break too, because
the admission of the value of human life here. Forget about your job and the badge you have and what other job can you go to where 4 of your peers and yourself murder a man on camera, and we discuss whether or not you should be held accountable or not because you said check his pulse. If this was anybody, let's just be honest here. If it was a young white boy underneath that knee and it was 4 black men holding him down, we wouldn't have this conversation. I wouldn't have the opportunity to say to you, hey, I know him. He lives down the street from me. He's a really good guy. That wouldn't be the context of the conversations that we're having. And that's where you hear our anger and our passion and the tiredness in our voice. This was a man who was murdered on video camera by 4 men. The value of his life has to be spoken up for. I don't have compassion for the fact that you know him. He should have gotten up. Before he is a police officer, he's a first responder. Do you guys understand what police officers are? They're first responders. So when he said, I can't breathe, my body hurts, my back hurts, my chest hurts. These are 4 first responders standing there while civilians watched. So not only did they murder a man, they also put all of these other people that were watching it in a mental instability. Sorry, I can't get my words together because I'm just so frustrated and I'm so tired of having to defend Black lives. It's getting old. It's getting old. I'm tired of having to say to you, I matter. His life matters. He was in handcuffs with 3 men kneeling on him. How do you justify that? So I'm emotional, obviously, because this is a lot. This is heavy. I think a lot, I hear it in everybody's voice on here, that there's just that fine line between, man, that tension that's curdling, that fear. I'm hearing a lot of embarrassment and shame. People are truly sorry. I understand all of that, but we got to talk about what this really is. The conversation that we're having really and truly is about the value of human life, period. That's what Black Lives Matter is all about. It's about the value of our lives. You do not value us. That's why it's very easy for you to say, I know that officer. He's a really good guy. Fuck that. Really good guys don't put their knee on someone's back until they die. That's not what they do.
And that's the conversation you have to have in a safe place. You feel safe to say what you have to say, the other people feel safe to hear it and get to a point where they can say something. But that is going to be the journey that we walk on.
Yes, you're right, Auntie. You are absolutely right. And thank you for being the voice of reason. What you have said has really been extremely, extremely helpful. So absolutely.
What's so amazing about this forum, guys, like hearing that is 100% real. And we've seen too many videos by people we don't know or in forums where there's not just a handful of us. Thank you so much, Leslie. That was really, we all needed to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
You're
you
welcome.
know what I would
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Les. I think sometimes, you hear all these different, viewpoints and theories that people bring to the table. And I must that, with Jessica and Chrissy, I know with the table, it was good intentions. He was kind of sharing from, their personal experience. But a lot of times I kind of feel like, people have good intentions and they want to think highly of people they know or that's in their circle. And I think sometimes as a person of color, just over the years, you just see so much injustice, and people want you to have compassion. And in the same course, we want compassion. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, Leslie, for you to say what you said and the passion you have behind that, it says a lot it says a lot about you and where you at and what you tired of. And it also says a lot about the community that we live in too. That we it's like we just fed up, right? You fed up, you getting tired of hearing people trying to change the narrative. In some of the circles that I'm in or some of, stuff I hear on TV, I think, Ron, you had brought it up that people, what I heard was when people talked about the riot, they was just so more concerned with the riot and what people were doing instead of the life that was lost, right? And if you live within that community and you have some understanding, you say, okay, this was caught on camera, right? It was on video, right? What about them lives that were not on video, right? That mothers and fathers have lost their children. Just over years, they have children to police brutality, right? So it's kind of like, somebody the other day told me, I just can't understand why people get that upset. I can't understand why they burn communities. And I had shared with them that it'd be like if somebody came in your house and to your daughter, you tell me that you will call the police and call that police and you hold that person down, you won't get upset, and you tell the police to get that person. And then I said, what about if your daughter was harmed, raped 3 and 4 times? That's how people of color feel, that it continues to happen. It's kind of like that, again, our lives are not valued. And what messages are sent, because I don't hear this when it's, if you can tell me a time within the last 10 years, 15 years, has there been a white young person killed by a black officer? First of all, we as black people know if we killed anyone, but if we killed a white person,
well, that's
Officer Norris serving 12
yeah.
years right now.
Yeah, that's part of that's history here around the corner.
Minneapolis again. Yep.
Yeah. And we know that this has happened and he's locked up, but we have had other video footage and nobody's locked up. I think about the Rodney King, beating with them police officers, just manhandling him, beating him, and all of them walked scot-free, right? So it's kind of like, some people are awakening and they see what's taking place now because it's in their face. But then you have this history, and then just not our personal history, but then I got my mother telling me what she saw when she was growing up. And then I got this grandfather that's telling me the same thing. And it gets overwhelming. So when this last incident happened, it brought me to a place where, I saw every black person I loved that was laying on that ground that could have been my family members. And that's just real talk. And so as I said, I think as we get passionate, because I never, for a conversation to happen like this, I never would like to push my white friends to the side and say, what you're saying and what you are doing is not valid. But I do want to say that that as you or others, because I don't want to stereotype anybody, as you are being awakening as far as what took place, a lot of us have been, this kind of been our lives. We've been living through this. So it's kind of like I am so happy that I hope that the majority silence that I'm used to and I'm accustomed to, that will no longer happen, because that's a big problem. That's a big injustice is taking place. And you don't speak up or you make an excuse. Because somebody had mentioned, I think earlier, they had talked about George Floyd, having drugs in his system, right? So regardless he had drugs in his system, he's still a human being, right? He still has a family. He didn't wake up that day saying, I'm gonna get killed, but he got killed that day. And but again, for my white brothers and sisters that's on this Zoom call, and you bringing up questions, I don't want to feel like you feel like you getting shot down, but just know there's some pent up, there's some how could I put it? There's some hurt, and it's raw, right? It is really raw. So don't take this instance and how people are feeling and feel like, what, I'm not gonna have this conversation again because I brought something up and I got shot down. So I want you to know that for you to bring that up, I appreciate that you brought it up, but also, that's kind of where you at and how you feel. And then Sister Leslie, she kind of shared, kind of where she at and a lot of other African Americans are at. So never want to stifle a conversation. I think hearing all sides is really important, but also just knowing that there's a history of injustice that take place within our community. Just builds up. And Ron Senior brought up yesterday. He brought up the Black community being like a crock pot, right? It was overflowing, and it just blew up, right? And do we really own our community? Do we, people say, Black businesses were destroyed. Do we really own our community, right? Do we really have power? So people that don't have power, you're going to see behaviors what you saw, right? And also that frustration what you saw. So
hey James, I just want to because I want to make sure that we're doing our best to have an open conversation, but make sure we're being a little accurate. Not everybody on the call is from Minneapolis, so they might not know everything that's happened in the past several years. But I think the Muhammad Noor is an important piece of this because he's the only police officer to ever be convicted in Hennepin County.
Right.
And he shot a woman, Justine Damon, just not too far, about 8 blocks from where I live at. And I'm not going to break down the details of the case, but he just turned around, fired, and shot her. But so a couple of things there. So the only person to ever be convicted a Minneapolis police officer to be convicted of murder was Muhammad Noor, who was a Somali American police officer who killed a white woman.
Right.
And not everybody may not know that because that's not everybody is from here, but that's going to play into this story, right? It was initially, I believe, and correct me somebody if I'm wrong, 3rd-degree murder initially, upped to 2nd-degree murder, and then was convicted of, he didn't get the intentional 2nd degree, but I believe got convicted of 3rd degree, but he's serving, as Leslie said, 12 and a half years in prison right now.
Gotcha.
He's the only Minneapolis police officer to ever be convicted, if I have my story straight there.
So can I just speak to what James was saying about, quieting someone or making them feel uncomfortable and them not wanting to share? That's certainly not my intention, and those who know me on here know that I'm just passionate about what I'm passionate about and what matters to me, and so I share from that space, and it's not to shut you down. However, I say this lovingly: if you are uncomfortable, you should be.
Right.
Gotcha.
And I think that's important. We talked about that too in some of the other conversations. Don't be afraid to say something, but also don't be afraid or offended by what somebody says back to you, right? And I think that's what Leslie is saying, is that she's going to feel the way she's going to feel. And if you say something that she's going to react to, it's okay, right? It's okay for people to say what they're going to feel. It's okay to say something back to you. It's okay for that person to say something back to you, as long as we keep it in a respectful
and respectful.
And actually, Leslie, thank you. And I'd love to hear from Chrissy and Jesse. Like, I think this is what's important, that we rip off the Band-Aid and we talk this way. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because it was great that you guys shared that from your honesty, and it was great that Leslie let you know the feelings and that we share in this, those of us that experience this. So, Leslie was a voice for those of us who truly live this every day. But would love to hear back from you guys. What are your thoughts in hearing that? Is it hard? Is it different than you thought you would have heard, or or do you have a different
honestly,
thought about it?
I've been doing as much as I can to educate myself since all of this happened. I was here Monday night, and I was saying how when I first heard, I heard like later, obviously, because I live in California, and I was very proud to be from Minnesota, and excuse me, everyone here knows that. So I started getting texts from friends saying like, "Oh, did you hear what happened?" And I was embarrassed because I talk about Minnesota with so much pride, and I was sad, and I cried a lot, and I cried harder because I don't have to have those feelings every day because of my privilege. So I felt guilty that I was sad because of this instance, not on a daily basis. And that made me want to just be better and learn more and do more and have tough conversations. And I grew up in a really awesome family where we did have some of these tough conversations. So I have started talking to friends where I'm the one that makes them feel uncomfortable because I'm giving them all the information that I'm learning too and saying, like, you know, read this book, watch this documentary. Like, I watched 13 when it first came out, and I just, you know, told a bunch of my friends that they need to watch it and that it's deep and it's real, and what we learned in school was a bunch of bullshit. And there's so much more information out there for all of us to learn, and I think being white, it's our responsibility. We don't need to be asking people to tell us things. We don't need to ask people of color for resources. This is a bullshit system that started built on what white people's lies and telling other people to believe. And I feel that we have to be just as loud to other people so that they can learn more and better themselves and stand up for other people. I mean, I'm going to a protest tomorrow night at the end of my street. Like, I'm trying to like hear as much information from speakers and learn as much as I can so that I can help spread that to my friends that aren't as willing to do as much as I'm trying to do. So I appreciate all of you, and I wasn't trying to stick up for him. I just was feeling like it was closer to home than I expected it to be once I realized where he actually grew up and that it was down the street from me and all that. But I do appreciate all of you, and I'm not offended by anything at all. I love all of your responses, so keep them coming.
I have a question. This is old Roxy again. And my question is for James. James, did it run through your mind at all when you were at the church and nothing was said and you said nothing, that there was some complicitness from you in systemic racism?
You're muted, JT.
My apologies. So I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Roxy. I guess what happened, Ms. Roxy, was 2 weeks ago, my church is, I love my church. So 2 weeks ago, my church, how could I put it? It is not as diverse, okay? So what happened was my pastor had called me in. He said, you know, James, could I meet with you? He said, you know, I want to bring this up on Sunday evening. And I said, yes. I said, I'd love to meet with you. So I met with my pastor for 2 hours. And he said, you know, James, I'm a white male. I have a lot to learn. He said, as a black male, as a black person, what would you like to hear? Right? So we spent that 2 hours and we talked about some important things. I also talked to him about, you know, things we can do moving forward as far as partnering with other churches, being that we don't have much diversity, and bringing that diversity within our school, within our church, so we can show the young people that how we work together. So I had spoke to the pastor, and for the last couple of Sundays, he has put that out there. He has put that out there, and this person that runs, this person that was leading this conversation tonight, if she's a member of this church, she's aware of it. She's totally aware of it. So tonight, you know, I didn't bring it up myself in the beginning because I had a pastor and he had already, you know, talked to the congregation. So as I made a point to say that, you know, for us to be meeting, because I had to leave a little early, for us to be meeting for the last hour and a half, I am so embarrassed that at no time on our agenda that George Floyd had. So I guess, and so I'm sorry, could you ask that question again?
I was asking the question, what did you think or feel yourself not bringing up the George Floyd issue when nothing was said when you announced that you were coming to be on the Zoom meeting? Did that feel like you were participating in systemic racism Because that goes both ways, you know.
Oh, I can tell you this, Miss Roxy. So I'm a school social worker, Miss Roxy, and I deal with a lot of I work with a lot of young people. I work with a lot of families that feel like they don't have a voice. So sometimes, Miss Roxy, you know, you speak, you talk. I do a lot of that, and I also do a lot of listening. So it was mentioning earlier that there are some times you just want to, you know, you just want to relax, right? You in a church setting, and like I said, I've been speaking with our elders. I just spoke with our pastor today about connecting with a Black pastor in my area and having lunch so yes, if you know me, Miss Roxy, you would say no, that's not James as far as not saying anything, because I speak up when I should. I speak up all the time. Tonight, I spoke up as I was leaving, and I was sending a message. So no, I don't feel like I was silent.
Okay.
I mean, I think it was a big miss on their part. I don't think that was necessarily something that you should have shouldered, especially given that, I mean, I just think it's pretty ridiculous it wasn't on the agenda. So I'm really pleased that before you left, whatever energy or passion you had around it, that you did say something, but it certainly was not your responsibility. I think what's really amazing about this conversation, and it's something that when Ron invited me, I was really excited about, because it was already something that I started talking to a lot of my white friends about, checking and not just checking, but also investigating our own biases. Even, you know, I kind of run in a very liberal and involved group of folks who do a lot of work in the community already. But, you know, the fact is that we are white. And I think someone spoke up earlier about, you know, we've all benefited from that privilege our entire lives. And, you know, a blessing that I had early in my life was my first 7 years of my life, I didn't live in this country. And thank God. And I think that, you know, to my earlier point, I really believe that this is a conversation that we as Caucasians have a really huge responsibility to continue to challenge, and sometimes in a really uncomfortable, because this should be uncomfortable for a lot of these folks, and I don't really care how uncomfortable it makes them, but it really is something that I don't feel is the responsibility of the African American community to have us check ourselves. And I'm really excited about this revolution, and it's high time and coming. I don't know if anyone ever remembered that quote. Thomas Jefferson actually said back in the day, a revolution should happen every 7 years. That might be a little excessive. It means we're not getting it right. But I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, you know what? I wanted to piggyback on that because I think that that's an important point. You know, I think what's happened is this is at least from my perspective. I think what's happened is, I don't know how you guys felt in terms of understanding how did we get here, because obviously we're watching such a gruesome murder of a young African-American man, a father, husband, someone who had a deep family love and for his community. And regardless of whatever things he faced or didn't face, we all are human and we all have our weaknesses and we all have our devices. It doesn't matter. What matters is a human being got murdered that way. But when I looked at that and I looked at, wow, how did we get here from Rodney King? And you look at Rodney King was 28 years ago, if I don't stand correctly, 28 years ago. And you look at even, you know, Trayvon Martin was 7 years ago. And obviously there's been a lot of high profile cases in a row that are only microcosms of the millions of cases that are going on each day, which is why this is boiled over, as we mentioned, like a crack pot that exploded here in 2020. But if you look at it in context to Rodney King, and you go back to when Martin Luther King was assassinated for fighting for everything here, that we all try to enjoy each day, it's like we almost, as a society, as America, as you know what I mean, as a unity, have dropped the ball. You know, it's like Martin Luther King fought for civil rights along with all the great civil rights leaders and activists and people who sacrificed so much back then so that we could try to live in the society and in America we all dream of and that he dreamed of. But if you look at it in the last 52 years, have we all dropped the ball? Like, all I see is Band-Aids and Band-Aids and Band-Aids over decades. And we're really not having these honest conversations. We're really not going right at the problem systematically, whether it's corporate America or healthcare or education or politics. I think we're not ever healing those Band-Aids. We're just patching it up. And then I think that that's what's boiled over in 2020. We now exploded. And I think that we need to find a way to take what Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement did for us and pick up that baton right now in 2020. And we need to like unify. And I'm talking to all people here, everybody who is human, who really wants to see the equality and justice for all. And we need to not let this moment die, George Floyd moment die. We need to make it be the moment that we pick up the baton and we actually carry it forward so that 20 years from now, our kids, whether Black, white, Latino, Asian, Middle Eastern, whatever, okay, are not talking about the exact same thing that's only been patched up, you know what I mean, in Band-Aids along the way. And so what I'm saying is this is a great start. I love that we're all opening up the way we are. And I think we don't have to be apologizing. I love what Leslie said and James said, and I do love that you stepped up, Chrissy, and I do love that Jessie said what she said, and Bill, because I think we need that. We need honesty, whether it's the right or wrong thing. And I also want to say on the flip side, as a Latino in this country, as African Americans, we can't also get mad when people finally step up and say truthful things too that hurt, because we should be allowed to react the way Leslie did, absolutely. But we also can't be butthurt because a person said their truth, because that's what we need to hear to ever get to the healing. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I think needs to happen. We got to find a way to bring unity to this moment, unity, and to bring healing so that we can start working with each part of America that needs to be brought to justice.
The person there with the name iPhone, who's my cousin Steven. You want to jump in here? I got it. You want to talk? You eating snack? No.
Wait, what now?
Steven, okay, so Steven is my oldest cousin, or my oldest male cousin, and Roxy's son. But so where were you born? What country?
I was born in Oklahoma.
Okay, but then you lived in, where you lived in Germany? You lived all over the world, right?
Well, yeah, lived everywhere.
Right. So I'm interested in your perspective then, as somebody, because I'm sure you grew up with military people. You lived all over the world. Now he lives in Eau Claire. Just your James thinks that's funny. Your perspective though, coming from that, where you've grown up around all sorts of different people from around the world, and how we are sitting here today.
Well, to be honest with y'all, shit ain't gonna change. I mean, a lot of stuff is gonna happen, but shit is gonna stay the same. In the long run, it's gonna stay the same. I mean, it sucks, but that's what's gonna happen. That's all I really got to say about it. I mean, because for me, myself, I got time to make money. I ain't got time to protest. I ain't got time to stand on no corner, hold no sign, and be sitting in no meeting. I got time to make money. That's what I got time to do.
So I just want to say to Heidi, thank you for saying so eloquently what I try to say through my passion and I don't know, I'm really tied to this whole George Floyd thing. It has it's hit me like it's hit a lot of you in a way that we keep saying it's so different. We keep revisiting that phrase over and over again. This just feels different. This just seems, and so what you said about being uncomfortable, we all have to be uncomfortable, not just white people in this dialogue. This is not going to be a kumbaya, y'all. We're not going to sit at a table and it's not going to be friendly with a lot of smiles. There's going to be tears. There's going to be different opinions. People are going to get angry and people are going to get up from the table. And that's fine because that's their level of comfort and they have the right to do so. But I'm not going to apologize for my passion and how I feel. Mm-hmm. I'll excuse myself from the table before I get rude, but I'm definitely not going to say I'm sorry for valuing another human being's life and being passionate about it. And I know that's not what you're saying, Heidi, not even close. What you did say, though, I thought was very powerful when you said, I got the opportunity to live outside of this country and have a different perspective. And I want to say to my white peers that you do need to be uncomfortable. You need to be ready to be uncomfortable as we have these conversations. And so I think as Black people, brown people, we don't want to make you uncomfortable, right? There's a quote that says, it was Langston Hughes that says, man, Black people are sweet, but wait till they change their mind, right? We're not about that. We don't want you to feel like, you know, we're threatening you. That's just not culturally who we are. And so a lot of times when we have these uncomfortable conversations, we're quick to say things like, we want you to share your part too, or to make you feel okay and to sort of not necessarily pacify you, but to sort of justify why we're so angry. But the truth is we're angry. We are pissed off. And you got to know that. And that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, period. And so be prepared when you're having these conversations. If you invite me to a dialogue, be prepared to know that I'm going to share how I feel, and it might not make you feel good. And it might just check you and you might feel good. You never know, but just be prepared for the truth. And I am too. Yeah, I'm open to it and I want to hear it.
I'm so tired of people. First of all, it's been socialized, unfortunately, for a lot of Black folk to try to make people feel good about this, which is complete bullshit. And I absolutely believe that we're on a tipping point. And cousin, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. And I get you need to go make some money, but you're on the phone right now today with us. And so
I'm on the phone because my cousin Ronnie set this up. If my cousin Ronnie didn't set this up, I wouldn't be on here. Believe that.
Well, I'm glad you're on the phone, but it will be a huge fucking failure. And Nikki knows me really well. I've had a real pleasure of having known this woman for about 14 years now. And she knows I'm not quiet. I'm not quiet corporately. I don't remember who was talking earlier about their Texas boss, but especially as white folk, when someone says something fucked up, I don't care if they're your CEO. You have to check them. You have to say something. You have to speak up. And, I dare them to fire you over that deal because right now, if the CrossFit guy has to quit in 2 hours, damn well you're in a good position. Right now is a time for everyone to speak up. The temperature is correct for that. And we have a young group of folks that are coming up that just don't get this and have a lot of energy around it. And I think they finally understand why they need to vote. And so enough apologizing, but yes, we have to, as white folk especially, challenge everyone that we know that looks like us. And to your point, Leslie, I'm fine if they get up from the table, but I'm not going to stop saying what I have to say.
Right on. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to mention that, you know, it might be shocking to some people that I'm sorry, Ronnie's cousin. What is your name?
Stephen.
Ronnie, huh?
Stephen.
Stephen. Oh, Stephen. I know it would be shocking to some people to hear what Stephen had to say, which is, it ain't gonna change. But you can see and understand the pain and the reality of what he's saying. You know, as a black man in America, like that's how a lot of people feel. You know, that it ain't gonna change. You know what I mean? Even if I differ in opinion in the sense that I see a hope and a light, and I believe in that hope and light, I think we also need to hear the pain of people saying, I just don't feel this is going to change. And hopefully that'll motivate more people who have the position and the privilege to make the change. So I wanted to use that moment to see what you said very honestly, and thank you, Stephen, that this isn't going to change, because I know that that's the feeling of a lot of black men in America, women in America, and a lot of brown Latino people.
Real talk. My mama was on. My mama, that's Roxy. That's my mama. When I turned 25, we had a celebration that I was still alive. You understand what I'm saying? And now I'm 42. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's almost 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And it's still the same shit going on. You know? So of course my mentality is like,
I was at that party.
Gonna change. It's just a bunch of talking. Just a bunch of talking, but ain't nothing really happening. You know? But it's just a bunch of talking. I mean, yeah, the guy died and I feel for him dying. But it's probably gonna be 50 niggas die tonight from gangs, drugs, whatever. Gonna die tonight regardless anyway. You know what I'm saying? But who's gonna change that? What's gonna change that?
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Amen. It's a reality that goes to a broader systematic issue that we all have to face head on right now.